welcome to the Domestic Roundtable 1. Please remember to remain on mute unless you are called on and introduce yourself before you ask your questions. Please no follow-up questions unless you're called on. Let's start with Kenneth.
Hello, I'm Kenneth Moorfield from Arts and Faith. Thank you for having me. I wanted to ask Troy, a little while ago, Emilia described the Rossi family as dysfunctional, and I've been thinking about that word a lot since she said it, and maybe whether or not it means different things to different generations. I was wondering if you, Troy, agree with the characterization that the family's dysfunctional, and how you think Frank would feel about having the family called dysfunctional.
It's a good question. If you grow up in a deaf family, there are circumstances where people call us dysfunctional. You get used to that. And I think that's how Frank feels. That's part of his daily experience. And he doesn't care what people think. You don't think we're functional? Okay, that's your perspective. Depends where you grew up. If you're not a part of it, you might think we're dysfunctional because we're not able to speak and listen, and we get marginalized. That's how people perceive us, as dysfunctional. And then when you understand deaf culture, I'm sure there's a different kind of functionality there from the deaf perspective. Is that clear? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Patrick?
Thank you. I'm Patrick Gibbs with Slug magazine. That's Salt Lake Underground, Salt Lake City, Utah. First off, when I first saw CODA, and I've seen it 3 times now, you suddenly jumped up to the top spot on my I have to meet that actor and tell him how brilliant he is and how much I loved his performance. Spot.
Well, thank you very much.
If you don't
That's
get
an
the
honor.
Best Supporting Actor nomination, I will be very upset. Your the scene with Frank, Ruby and Frank, where she sings to him, it's very emotional. You made me laugh throughout this movie, and then you have made me fall apart sobbing at that scene 3 times. So thank you and damn you. Was that an emotional scene, half as emotional to shoot as it is to watch?
Thanks for asking that question, and thanks for your such kind comments. It really means a lot. With Frank, he really wants to be a part of Ruby's world. And he's deaf, and sound isn't accessible. And then I realized, as Frank, that she had this talent that we had overlooked for so long. And now things had changed. And it was her moment. And trying to understand that. And we locked eyes. And our faces said so much. We didn't need to articulate anything. We didn't need to go by the script. We kept it simple. Less was more. And I'm so happy that that moment was captured the way it was. You know, she looked at me, I'm tired of all this struggle here, the friction between the two worlds. And was I ready to let go, or did I really need her? It was a decisive moment.
Thank you. Now I'm going to cry again.
David?
Well, I hope you have some Kleenex with you, hopefully, in your room.
Yes.
Thank you, David Stark from Watcher Pass. So what I loved is how Frank he's kind of gruff, but also he's very, very funny. And it seems like every person we've talked to has said that you, Troy, are kind of a jokester. You're a very humorous person. So was Frank's inherent humor and kind of that the underlying love and joking in the family, was that something in the script, or was that something that you kind of brought as you made Frank and the family your own?
I would say both. When I'm not on set, I'm still joking around with everybody. And I'm the same. And sometimes a good example of that is had this fan around me to keep me cool because I didn't want my makeup to dissolve, you know? And so just thinking and had this fan on, and then all of a sudden, I'm like talking into it, joking around. And I didn't know that it was still rolling and everybody started laughing. I didn't know that they were shooting. I was just, you know, I had no idea, but it was so fun. And just keeping the energy going. And then you're comfortable on camera and you carry that with you. Working all day, people get tired. You need something to keep the electric going. And then when you're done the day, the importance is just having fun. Thank you.
Nancy?
Thank you so much, Troy. I'm Sister Nancy from Pauline Media. And this is such a beautiful film. And I'm going to go back a little to what Patrick was talking
Thank you.
about the father-daughter relationship between Frank and Rudy. And it was such a touching relationship. You know, at first it seems that he's relying on her for their job. But towards the end, is that last scene when when she's singing and he's touching her throat, it's like they saw each other for who they are. And I thought maybe if you could share a little bit more about that relationship and how it developed in the film and how you as actors developed that relationship through the story.
That's a very good question. In terms of the relationship growing, from the first day, we got out of our comfort level, but then we were already embracing. Not even on the set. We just felt comfortable with one another. We trusted one another. And it was like a father-daughter relationship everywhere we went. It was so nice to have that collaboration and to keep that going throughout the weeks of the shots and building that rapport. At the same time, Frank wants to understand Ruby better. And if we didn't have that scene, or if I didn't go see her, or Frank didn't go see her concert at the school, at that point, being there, Frank feels the energy of the audience around him, and everybody raves about the performance. And that ties in with the next scene on the truck. And I'm wondering, as Frank, the other singers didn't get the reaction that Ruby got. And that makes Frank think even more and wants to understand even better. And feeling her sing, that's the moment where the decision is made that Frank knows what's best for Ruby and wants that. It was a hard decision for a father. I have a daughter myself, and I'm not ready to let go.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Steph?
Hi, it's Stephen from the Christian Science Monitor in Boston. That scene where Ruby sings to
Wow.
you.
In Boston, okay.
Mhm. That scene where Ruby sings to you on the flatbed truck, and he's trying to understand her. What occurs to me is that their communication is possible because of a deep-rooted love for each other. And I wondered if you could talk about how love facilitates connection and bridges divides.
You have to have a comfort level working together, both on and off the set. You know, she looks at me like I'm her ridiculous father. I look at her, she's my great crazy daughter. And then we get to the point where we're sitting there and we have that bond. And then in terms of love, I didn't want to sign that much in that scene. I just wanted to show it through my eyes so she could feel the sentiment without the words. And I talked it over with Sean. And instead of what was scripted to say the word thank you after she sings for me, it just didn't feel right. I thought that I should use my face to express my gratitude. And at that moment, Ruby looks to Frank to say, "Do you understand me?" And Frank looks back and nods and kisses her on the forehead. That was so much better than just saying thank you. Look, the audience is smart, and less is more. We kept it simple, and I'm so glad that we did to really capture that moment.
Thank you.
Steve Norton, have you gotten a chance?
Thank you.
Not yet, but I'm ready to go.
Thank you.
I feel like, first of all, Troy, I'm not alone when I say it is a beautiful performance and an incredible film. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, well, thank you.
I have to admit that you're very welcome. It is so beautiful. I have to admit that I'm a little bit struck. I feel like there's so many conversations about family, and all I want to do is ask you about fishing right now. I was really wondering about your preparation in that regard, because that is a tough job, and being on set to what it took to learn about that world.
It's a dangerous job. I didn't grow up as a fisherman. I'm from Arizona. There's no ocean there. It's a hot desert. We've got a little lake and maybe a swimming pool, a little river, but I was so happy that we got there 2 weeks prior to the first day of shooting. And during that time, on the first day, we were just observing real fishermen and following them around. And the next day, it was our turn. And they walked us through it on how to do everything with the fish and bring in the nets. And the director brought a stunt coordinator and some doubles in case we needed to switch out for filming purposes. But they saw us getting our hands dirty and it became second nature. And the director said to the stunt people, "We don't need you anymore. We just need the actors." We were thrilled. And we were on the seas every morning, 2, 3 in the morning. We'd have to wake up and go out there because that's the optimal time to catch those fish and bring them back and cut them up and bring the catch back. And we got to the dock at noon, and then we go to the bar because that's, to the fishermen, you know, that was nighttime for them. It was an interesting experience that was very influential. and help us really get into the role over that 2-week period. And we were part of the community, and they were willing to help us, and they imparted all that to Daniel and Emilia and I on the ship, and it was just a great experience to help us get into that character. And Sean, the director, said Frank was a high school dropout, and so he's been in this family business since he was young, and he had to show how adept he was in that business.
Yeah, it shows. Thank you so much.
Kenneth?
Thank you.
So Coda is obviously Ruby's story, but I would argue that Frank is the character who changes the most, and I think his change propels the action. You've mentioned the concert scene. Is that the beginning of his change or the climax of his change? And what other incidents in the movie before the concert scene start him on the road towards changing?
I don't know if Frank changes that much until he goes to the concert. And that's where it really hits him. He's observing the reactions of the hearing people around him. And he's never had this experience before. It's not like a football game where everybody's cheering for a touchdown. He lives in a small town. He's isolated. He's focused on the family business. And here he has this hearing daughter who's a CODA, and he wants to enter her musical world. And Frank feels like this is really exceeding his expectations. The standing ovation, how emotional it was for the audience. He observes all that, and there's a shift there. And he thinks, where have I been all this time? Why have I ignored this part of my daughter's life? And it's a hard decision. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time for Frank to think about it, to get a greater understanding about Ruby and her passion. And after the concert, the transformation starts for him to be able to let go. And he lets go based on love. If he's selfish, it's not going to happen. It's a challenge. And love can be complex in how you define it.
Okay, Patrick?
Thank you. So I'm going to kind of repeat a question that I asked Daniel. You have a stage acting background. You have done some theater, correct?
Yes.
As someone who grew up doing a lot of theater and has been a theater teacher to kids, it has really struck me. I see a kinship between stage acting and ASL. There are a lot of similarities in some of the central elements: eye contact, bigger gestures, emphasis on big facial expressions, making that connection. I do see a relationship between those two things, and I'm wondering if that's something that you've ever thought about, what your thoughts are, and how that may affect you as an actor.
Okay. On camera, it can be a very sensitive situation, which is different than being on the stage. That's live. You're really showing more with your face. If you were to do that on film, it would be too much. It's more sensitive. Less is more on camera. The audience can feel it, but they might not be ready for certain facial expressions. Maybe the deaf people, but trying to make it work. And you have to be honest. And your face is going to show that. Just because you have good facial expressions doesn't mean you're a good actor. It depends on the given situation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we only have time for like 2 more, maybe. Does anyone have any burning questions? Raise your hand. But okay, Steven.
Thanks. Marlee did an interview about this movie in which she said, quote, "In terms of stories, I think we've seen that era gone past where deaf people are playing victims," end quote. And I wonder if you could tell me about that shift in Hollywood storytelling and how wonderful it is that CODA just shows the full humanity of these characters.
I agree. I was so happy to play Frank in the Rossi Family. It depicts a successful business that's struggling. Whatever if you're BIPOC, you're deaf, whatever it is, there are struggles. And people don't think about the deaf experience and feel a commonality. But there are so many successful deaf attorneys, teachers, doctors, dentists, you name it. They're out there. They're just overlooked. And we're a minority. And now with the movie CODA, we're heroes. We don't need sympathy or pity. We work hard day in and day out. And I want to see more of that to portray successful deaf characters in whatever movies come out. That we have our own struggles, we have our own journeys, and it applies to the deaf community just like the hearing community. And that victim mentality is antiquated. It's an old way of thinking. We don't need pity or help or saving. It's time to change that narrative. And I think this is a good step forward with CODA.
That's a wonderful answer. Thank you so much.
Okay, we have time
Thank
for
you.
1 more. Anyone? Okay, David?
So when we talked to Emilia, she mentioned that when she was filming the audition scene and she looked up at the family and you all were in the stands, she personally got emotional because it was kind of the end of this journey that they'd taken together, that you all took together as a family. So my question is, up in the stands, did you also feel that emotional end, and have you stayed in contact after the fact since you were such a close family in this film?
We are still close. When Ruby finished, her being at Berkeley, I'm thinking, no. But in my mind, I wonder, and we text back and forth. And last week, we signed together on the phone and she wished me happy birthday. She signed it to me. It was very touching. So we're still very much in close contact. And when I saw her here and we bumped into each other as the elevator doors opened, it was such a pleasant surprise. We hugged yesterday at least 4 or 5 times. And it felt like a family reunion and still keeping that bond as a family. Same with Marlee and Daniel. And we get together and it feels like we're still working as a family. I'm thinking, maybe should we do CODA 2? Maybe we'll be grandparents with all these CODA kids and grandkids. We laugh.